Riven mods are a bit of a hot topic in Warframe at the moment, and I get asked a lot whether they are worth it in quotation marks. Obviously it would be a bit of a broad statement to say that they are, so I thought I'd put together a video that covers Riven mods in a bit of detail, including their role in the platinum economy in Warframe, and yes, we will be taking a look at making platinum from Riven mods, but first, what are Riven mods and how do you get them? Riven mods are in essence custom mods for the weapons in Warframe. There are variants for primary, secondary, melee, arc weapon and companion weapons. Every Riven mod you obtain will start off as a veiled Riven, i.e. it won't show any information. In order to unveil it, you will firstly need enough Riven slots in your inventory, which you can obtain by ranking up to MR30 or by buying them in the marketplace, and secondly, you will need to complete a challenge dictated by the Riven when you equip it in your arsenal. There are currently a total of 24 different Riven challenges in Warframe, and you can find guides for all of them in the next part of this video. If you don't want to get bored and watch all of that, then please do skip past them. So here is the order in which we will be showing these challenges. I've numbered them in the chapters below to make it a bit easier to find them. Please note that these challenges can have added complications, including but not limited to having to equip dragon keys, take no damage, remain undetected, etc, etc. Without further ado, let's just crack on with them. Number 1. Kill enemies with finishers. This is very straightforward if you have Ashe, but a stealth frame like Loki or Avara should suffice, as you can sneak up on enemies and perform finishers very easily. With Ashe, although Bladestorm does not count as finishers, Lethal Teleport does, hence you can spam it around and get loads of finishers in a very short space of time. Ashe can also go invisible with his smokescreen, making undetected variants also easy to achieve. Number 2. Kill enemies while sliding. This can be done very quickly with a delayed clear frame such as Volt or Mirage. Simply cast your clear ability and then slide around until you complete the challenge. Number 3. Kill enemies with headshots. Again, very straightforward. Stealth frames can help here so that enemies aren't moving and shooting you whilst you're going for headshots. Numbers 4 and 5. Kill unalerted Tusk Ballistas and kill enemies from at least 75 meters away. For these, I usually take a sniper rifle, any will do, and head out onto the plains of Eidolon. Whilst in Arcwing, for the ballistas, search around for towers which are guaranteed to contain one or two. Sit at a reasonable distance and just pick them off. For enemies over 75 meters, sniper scopes can tell you the distance to your target, so you know where you need to be sat. Number 6. Kill enemies on a dropship. Depending on the amount of enemies you need to kill, I usually head out to the plains for this again. Take a high-powered weapon and go to the east side of the map. Here you can fly back and forward and trigger a number of Dargan and dropship spawns quickly. Number 7. Catch fish without missing. Unfortunately, there's no tips for this one other than use fish dye, which you can purchase from the relevant fisher people in Cetus, Fortuna and Necrolisk. Number 8. Catch one fish, mine one gem or metal, and kill one enemy in 30 seconds. Again, head out to the plains and go left to the first lake. I would recommend catching a fish first, then mining a gem, and then killing an enemy. Sometimes this can be a bit buggy, so you may have to repeat it. I would also recommend fully mining the gem or metal if possible, as sometimes this can trigger the challenge. Number 9. Complete a defense mission with level 30 or higher enemies without the defense objective taking any damage. This one catches a lot of people out, but the easiest one for me is to take Ember or really any good clear frame out on a CAD on Eris. Infested have no guns, can't shoot the defense objective, and clear frames can kill them before they reach it. To be extra safe, put down a Spectre or Uncle Crewmate to deal with any stragglers that might slip through. Number 10. Complete an extermination mission with level 30 enemies without being detected. For this, I like to use Loki with hushed invisibility and take an AoE weapon like the Kuva Ogress. Just make sure you are in a safe spot when your invis is about to run out, and take Unaru as your focus school and use poise so you don't fall over. Number 11. Complete a solo interception mission with level 30 or higher enemies with a hobbled dragon key equipped. For this, I tend to just take Slow Nova and pop onto Barenia on Sedna. Corpus missions can have nullifiers, so that can be annoying for Nova, and infested units move a lot faster than Grineer, so you will find that you have to jump around points a bit more. Just use Nova's 4th, kill as few enemies as possible, and maintain the points. Number 12. Destroy Dargans with a bow. This one is best achieved on Koro on the Kuva Fortress. Simply get to the stage where you break through the gate and a number of Dargans will spawn. Then you just pick them off with your bow. Number 13. Destroy rush turrets in Arcwing. These guys spawn on the towers we mentioned earlier, just fly around and shoot them as they spawn. Number 14. Find caches. Simply take a nice and fast frame around any sabotage mission and you should be able to pick this up pretty easily. You can put on loot mods such as Thief's Wit in order to improve your chances. I usually go to the sabotage node on Sedna, Rusalka for this one. Number 15. Find Syndicate Medallions. Each Syndicate mission has 8 medallions in, so just one Syndicate can offer 24 medallions a day. Auric and Eye can again be used to your advantage here if you have it, otherwise take a fast frame and get around the maps as quickly as you can. Take the loot radar mods to help you. Number 16. Get 3 headshot kills in a single aim glide. This is an absolute cinch for Zephyr, just charge Tailwind and go to town. If you don't have Zephyr however, get yourself a shotgun with a lot of punch through, like the Arcoplasmor, and then spray into as many enemies as you can whilst hovering. You can also make use of mods like Aerovantage to improve your chances. Number 17. Get kills in a row while wall dashing or wall clinging without touching the floor. Similar to the challenge where we were sliding, I like to use a clearance frame here with a slight delay. Volt on Sanctuary Onslaught or Mirage with Explosive Legion work well here, just cast 4 and attach to a wall for a bit. Number 18. Get the Killing Blow on Sentience. I tend to just go to the Plains of Eidolon at night and look for Vonvalists for this one. They are easy to kill and can be found relatively quickly. Just hover around until you see them spawn. I would recommend turning on enemy highlighting to help you. Number 19. Kill Dargin pilots before they hit the ground. Similar to the dropship challenge, fly to the east of the Plains of Eidolon and track back and forth until Dargins spawn. Then using a sniper or other precise weapon, shoot the Dargin and then the pilot. Number 20. Kill enemies. Again, depending on the complications added, this one might need a bit extra. For straightforward kills, use a clearance frame on Sanctuary Onslaught, or if you need to be undetected, refer to challenge number 10 of this guide. Number 21. Land consecutive headshots while in Arcwing mode in the Plains of Eidolon. What it says on the tin, simply head to the plains with a sniper and take your time making sure to get the headshots. Number 22. Sustain a 6x melee combo counter for 30 seconds. I tend to go with Cora for this one. Using Nariman, I can keep my combo counter up high without worrying. Mods like Gladiator Rush or Drifting Contact can also help with this one if you don't have access to the Nariman skill tree. Number 23. Synthesize a Samaras target without using traps or abilities, while having a hobbled Dragon Key equipped. This one I tend to just do, to be honest. It can be a pain, but if you are able to equip the widgets from Cephalon Samaras, it can make this easier, for example, double scanning speed. Number 24. Complete a survival mission with level 30 or higher enemies without killing anyone. I usually take a stealth frame on any survival mission above 30, Corpus or Grineer usually, and then simply wander around attacking crates for extra life support and making sure to use the life support capsules when it starts to get low. Then simply extract at 5 minutes. So that's all the challenges currently present in the game, I believe. If you are struggling with any, then do leave a comment down below referencing the number and I'll be happy to help. Moving on, we look at what happens when you unveil a Riven mod. A Riven mod can have either 2 positive stats, 2 positive stats and a negative stat, often referred to as a curse, 3 positive stats, or 3 positive stats and a curse. It is important to note here that having a curse on your weapon will improve the buffs granted by the other positive stats on your Riven. For a top tier Riven, it is always desirable to have a curse that is negligible to the performance of the weapon in question. For example, having negative finisher damage on a melee weapon that would never be used for finishers. The stats that you obtain on your Riven are dictated by the Riven disposition of the weapon. This can be seen as 5 dots on the weapon itself. The more filled dots you have, the better the disposition and the higher the stats will be, relatively speaking. Whilst these dots give a rough indication of the disposition, there is in fact a number scale at play here which can determine them accurately. You can find these values by looking online, either on the Warframe wiki or a website like Semlar. Essentially, the maximum disposition a Riven can give is 1.55, whilst the minimum is 0.5. A weapon with a 1.55 Riven disposition will grant the highest possible stats for that weapon. Riven dispositions are updated semi-regularly by the developers depending on a weapon's usage statistics. Hence, you may find that the stats of your Riven change after an in-game update. Even knowing the exact disposition of the weapon you have a Riven for will not provide you with an indication of the exact statistics you can get on that weapon. For each disposition, there is a range of values you can get. For example, if you had a Riven mod for the Latron Prime, which has a disposition value currently of 1.3, and you happen to get multi-shot as a buff, it could range anywhere between 130.3% to 159.3% multi-shot if the Riven has a curse, and 104.2% to 127.4% multi-shot without a curse. Obviously, the closer to the upper end of the scale and reaching what is commonly referred to as an S tier role, the better and more valuable the Riven will be. So with this in mind, how do you get better stats on a Riven? Well, that's going to come down to rerolling it using Kuva. Kuva can be obtained a number of different ways in Warframe, including weekly from Iron Wake, using Steel Essence, using Vitus Essence, and completing Kuva Siphon missions and Kuva Survival. If you are so inclined, an ideal farm would be a Steel Path Void Fisher mission on Kuva Survival. Playing in a duo here is usually the best way to go, however if you want to play solo then I would recommend taking something like Necros with Shield of Shadows to provide you with additional life support and also a distraction for enemies so that the Kuva harvesters don't die. The more rerolls you gotta do, the more Kuva it's gonna take, and there is obviously a point where it no longer becomes worth your time, but this is pure RNG and there's nothing to be done about that. There is however solace in the fact that the more you reroll a Riven, the more Endo it accrues. Now you can obviously just dissolve it yourself and use the Endo, or you can sell it off as a quote-unquote Endo Riven mod. If we assume that a legendary cause value, which if used correctly is equivalent to around 40k Endo, sells for 100 platinum, you can basically guarantee yourself a sale of a rubbish Riven for this amount by marketing it as Endo, assuming you've rerolled it enough times. Speaking of value, we now move on to the part of the video where we talk platinum. Rivens are a common way to obtain platinum in Warframe and there are a few ways to go about it. First, however, you need to understand why some weapons have higher value Rivens than others. Essentially, it comes down to the meta and what changes, if any, the developers have introduced into the game. For example, if we look at the Occucore, this weapon a little over a year ago had terrible usage stats. Frankly, it was a pretty bad weapon, but following the introduction of the mod Sentient Surge, this weapon became godly and everyone wanted a piece of it. Hence, the Riven values soared. In fact, when previously an unrolled Riven for the Occucore was only 10 platinum, it is now being sold for around 600. The reason for this is that the weapon has become insanely good and the usage statistics have not yet caught up to it, meaning its Riven disposition is still incredibly high. It will, however, inevitably lose some disposition over time, but that won't stop the Rivens from being desirable. Their value will, over time, come down both due to supply and demand, and also changes made by the devs. The same can be said for all weapons which have been given Incarnon adapters. With that in mind, playing the market by purchasing a Riven mod and hoping it will increase in value is very tricky, and you need to often be ahead of the meta to achieve a profit from doing this. Another interesting interaction with Rivens in the Platinum market comes down to stat sticks. A stat stick is a melee weapon with a very high Riven disposition that can be used to transfer buffs to a warframe such as Korra that has an ability which scales off of your melee mods. These weapons, whilst generally not being used very much, can have Rivens worth thousands of platinum if the stats are ideal. So with that said, how can you make platinum from Rivens? Well, to be honest, it's a bit of a risky business and it can be split into two distinct methods. The first is to obtain veiled Riven mods and unveil them in the hopes that you stumble upon one of the more desirable weapons in the game. You can do this by buying them from other players and also making sure to get the Riven mods available from places like Iron Wake on Earth each week. This method is high risk, but does have the potential to yield high rewards if you were to unveil something like an Occucore Riven. Indeed, one Occucore Riven right now is worth the equivalent of about 40 veiled pistol Riven mods. Obviously though, with bad RNG, you might be throwing platinum down the drain. The other method to farming platinum for Rivens is through obtaining, re-rolling and reselling. By improving the stats on a Riven mod, you can improve its value. Now once again, there is a risk in this, as you could be spending ages farming Kuva to re-roll your Riven and never happen upon a good roll. That being said, at the very least, you will not lose that Riven mod, and can continue to re-roll it indefinitely. The trouble with this, however, is that with the majority of weapons, there is no middle ground for selling a Riven mod. It's either unrolled or very bad, and you sell it as such, or it's top tier and you can make a lot of platinum from it. Anything in between is kind of undesirable because, let's face it, who wants to pay more platinum for a mediocre Riven when you can buy a cheap Riven and roll it yourself, or you can buy an expensive Riven with all the stats you want already on it. Whilst I generally don't farm platinum from Rivens, I thought today we'd give it a go, and I've chosen method 2 here as a means to achieve this. For this, I'm going to purchase a Riven mod, either junk or unrolled, and then we are going to see if we can improve its stats and make a profit. If you're wondering which Rivens to buy to do this, I unfortunately can't offer you much advice, as the prices change so much that something I say now could be made redundant in a matter of weeks or months. However, as a rule of thumb, higher value Rivens carry less risk, whilst lower value Rivens are higher risk, but offer a better percentage return on your investment if you happen to roll godly stats, and by that I mean really godly stats like all S tier with a curse. So for our test Riven, I have decided to buy a Vermisplicer Riven. This weapon is pretty close to my heart as an Eidolon hunter, and I've had some good luck with it in the past. This is a weapon where we are going to need at least decent stats to shift it. The Riven mod that I'm going to buy has only cost me 20 platinum, but I want to get it to the point where I can shift it for at least 400 or 500. Now it's worth noting that this could never happen, so at some point we will be cutting our losses and selling for endo. The key stats we want on this Vermi are going to be fire rate, multi-shot, and crit damage. Fire rate is particularly important in the land of Eidolons, and if you want to know more about why, you can take a look at my other Eidolon hunting videos on my channel. So now we need to decide how long we are going to farm Kuva for. Right now, there is in fact a Kuva Survival Void Fisher, so I'm going to be doing that for some time, and we'll see how much we end up with, say, after a couple of hours. I'm going to be taking my Smeeter and my Necros for Shield of Shadows, and hopefully we can get some Kuva Harvesters going as well. So I'll see you guys in a bit. Alright guys, so this is actually my second time through this mission. First time went pretty well, this time's gone pretty naff, if I'm being honest. And I just lost an Acolyte, so I'm going to get out now once this relic drops. Hopefully we get some more Kuva if we're lucky. No, we're not. I barely got any Kuva this round, I think. It's kind of upsetting, but yeah. Best to do this in a duo, to be honest, I find. But let's get out of here. I think we got around, 55 to 60 platinum there. Not great. My cat really wasn't throwing me any bones either on that last one. But yeah, it'll do. Yeah, only 9.4k. I don't think I got a single... Maybe I got one Kuva drop from a relic, but, that's beside the point. Let's see now what we can get on this Vermisplicer Riven. Okay guys, so now that we've cashed in all of our Steel Essence, we have about 130k Kuva to spend, which should allow us to reroll this Riven about 40 or so times, probably a bit more. For an hour and a half of farming, it's not too bad, but I have had a lot better in the past. First of all though, I am just going to max this Riven out. It just makes it a bit more appealing to buyers, and then we'll start rolling. What I'll do is I'll just pause the video quickly once it's maxed, and then we will go and just sort of speed up the footage as we reroll it, and we will see where we end up. Alright, so super poor RNG there. I've ended on a heat and crit damage Riven with a good negative. Now whilst I would love to be able to sell this on camera, it is going to be hard to shift in its current state. As you can see, the endo value right now is about 15k, so I'd be lucky to shift it for even 50 or 60 platinum at this point. The chances are I'll just keep farming, but unfortunately I'm going to have to hold onto this one until it's worthy to be sold. As we said, it's a risky business to reroll. Sometimes you get lucky and sometimes you don't, so for now we're just going to move on. So now we come on to what difference a Riven mod actually makes. Bear in mind that a lower Riven disposition will have a less noticeable impact upon a weapon's performance, whilst a higher Riven disposition will have a greater influence. It's also worth noting that certain weapons thrive on specific statistics, and there are some unique interactions that can arise from this. The Vectis Prime, for example, can benefit from having a cursed magazine size, allowing builds that incorporate primed chamber. That's a bit of a gimmicky example, but the point still stands. For my test, I'm going to be showing my Exodia Contagion Zor, both with and without a Riven mod equipped, to see the difference in damage. Alright guys, so this is a sample Exodia Contagion build utilizing the Rabvi, and as you can see on the left here, the Rabvi has a nice Riven disposition of around 4 dot, which means any Riven we put on this is going to provide us with some nice extra stats. Now, for those of you who haven't seen my channel before, an Exodia Contagion build essentially is going to revolve around high crit chance and crit damage, and then whatever element you happen to need for the faction you're going against. In our case, we are going to be testing this against Corrupted Heavy Gunners, so I have put on Prime Smite Corrupted here, and we are using Corrosive Damage, which means that we can make use of Primed Fever Strike as well. Now, I do want to point out we aren't going to be doing this against Steel Path units, because frankly, Exodia Contagion does wear off extremely quickly against Steel Path units. It is not the best thing to use against them, so we are just going to stick with normal units for now. So without further ado, let's go ahead and just test this against some very high level, normal, Corrupted Heavy Gunners. Alright guys, so here are our level 195 Corrupted Heavy Gunners. This is without a Riven mod. Let's see how fast we can clear them out. As you can see, a lot of yellow crits happening right here. And there we go. All the enemies are dead. Now that's not too shabby if we think about it, but let's see how much better having a Riven mod is. So this is the build that I tend to go for when I am using the Riven mod. Now you can see that I have actually subbed out Primed Pressure Point here for my Rabvi Riven. The reason being that my Rabvi Riven provides me with close to 300% melee damage anyway, and plus 264% crit chance, which basically almost guarantees me an orange crit on every single throw, which means that my weapon will benefit greatly from having an enhanced crit multiplier. Hence I have kept Gladiator Might on and taken off Prime Pressure Point. Hopefully this will be able to clear out the enemies much faster, so let's take a look at it in action now. Alright guys, so the first thing you're going to notice with this Riven build is that we are, like I said, going to be hitting a lot more orange crits, so hopefully this will be much faster than the non-Riven build, but let's test it out and find out. And there we go, all the enemies are dead. So as you saw there, having the Riven mod on the Exodia Contagion Zor build was a great advantage, but it's important to note that this is a very specific example. You do not need a Riven mod to be able to complete all the content Warframe has to offer. In fact, you don't need a Riven mod to excel at it either. The majority of my builds, with the exception of my Eidolon hunting builds, do not incorporate Riven mods, and to be honest, they probably never will. So with that in mind, let's round off this video and have a quick chat about what we've learned. So at the start of this video, we asked ourselves if Riven mods were worth it, and to answer that, we're going to split that question up a bit first. Firstly, are Riven mods a necessity in Warframe? Absolutely not, you can get by just fine without them. Secondly, do Riven mods provide you with an advantage in the game? Absolutely, they provide increased stats to your weapons no matter the disposition, and as such they give you an advantage, albeit very slight in some matters and very great in other matters. Circling back though, they are often total overkill and not needed. Are they a good means of obtaining platinum? It depends on the day. Sometimes they can yield very high rewards, unlike today, but I would suggest you have some platinum in the bank already before you go down this route of building your supply of platinum. Essentially though, and I know this is such a cliche answer at this point, Riven mods are only worth the value you assign to them. Yes, they can make some weapons very fun to use and increase their power tenfold, but if you don't like using that weapon to begin with, I personally don't see the benefit in having a Riven for it. I, for example, hate using the Glaive Prime. Controversial, I know, and although I'm fully aware that a Riven mod will improve its damage and it's one of the strongest weapons in the game right now, I'm really not going to get any more enjoyment out of it than I currently already do, at least in my opinion. So there we have it guys. This is my take on Riven mods. Do let me know down in the comments some of the best Rivens you have, what weapons they're for, and what you find fun about them. Otherwise, if you did enjoy the video, please leave a like and subscribe, and I will catch you in the next one, guys.